Alright everyone, today's video is campaign design city building. Now you may say to me, Dungeon Memelord, we've already had a video on campaign design. Well, that was an overview, and this is the first step of brick by brick campaign design. So, in building your setting first, of course. So this is how to build a city. Now, when you make your city, you want to think of it in the context of the greater campaign and the greater setting. But you first have to build the city, and then the first video on this is going to be building the city. The second video next week is going to be on how to attach your city to the wider world. So when you build your city, you got to ask yourself some questions. The first one is, how big is my city? All right, if I were you, I would set several sizes, okay? But I like to use 1,000, 2,500, and 10,000 for my city sizes, all right, from smallest to largest, and change the numbers up a little bit from there. And from those numbers, you also get some more important information. Let's say you have a city of 1,000, all right? You would have 250 families, roughly, and you would have, let's say 12 or 11, extended families, right? So, if you guys remember, in The Hobbit, they had, 13 or 14 family names, that's kind of the thing here. Is all 1,000 people are descended from, 13 or 14 clans or tribes, or however you want to call it. So we've gotten our size, let's say it's 1,000, and we've gotten our families, our extended families, and our individuals, right? So the next thing we would need to have is a city map. And I don't know if you guys remember me talking about the concept of drawing a bad map, right? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to draw a bad setting map, and then you can draw a bad city map. And what I mean by bad map is you're just not going to spend too much time on it, and you're just going to have it for your purposes, and you're going to do drafts over time, make it look nicer, that kind of thing, if you choose to. But at the basic line, all you have to do is outline the city, and then 2 steps, all right? Number 1, every named business and location, so town hall and all the restaurants and taverns, draw a square and put the name next to it or on it, or however you want, all right? Number 2, for every family, draw a house. So we said it's a city of 1,000, draw 250 little squares. That sounds like a lot. It's super duper easy, and you don't actually have to draw exactly 250, and that adds to kind of the feeling of an organic city, right? Number 3, you're going to want to draw the roads connecting everything, all right? And I would honestly only have roads connecting the businesses, because that's what I do, right? So let's say there's 10 businesses in the city of 1,000, and so I just draw 10 little lines connecting everything, and that's how I do my basic roads. Now in my bigger cities, there's some urban planning, there's some real roads, but this is a smaller city of 1,000, right? So we've drawn our named businesses and locations. We've drawn a house for every family, and we have made our roads. So now we have our city size, our families, and our bad map. So we're off to a really great start for our city. But we need more, okay? First of all, we want some points of interest. I would say 11, and a business or a named location does count as a point of interest. I wouldn't have all 11 be those, but I would definitely have some points of interest. Maybe like an underground gambling hall, maybe a boxing ring, maybe there's a house of a man who's rumored to be demon possessed, right? All those are points of interest, and you can name those 2 and mark them on your map. You don't have to, but you can, okay? Now, districts are another good thing when you build your city, okay? Because 1, it's a tool to help you herd your cats, all right? And I've mentioned herding cats before. I don't think I have a video on it yet, but herding cats is basically getting your players to go where you want them to go without railroading them, right? Because there's always somewhere that we want our players to go, right? We never want them to say, all right, I'm not going to do this campaign. I'm just going to go off here and go fight Tiamat instead, or something like that, because then all our prep goes out the window, all our time is wasted, and we can't run a good session, right? So herding cats is very important, and if you divide your city into districts, it makes it easier, because you can put up barriers along those districts in whatever form you choose. It could be walled, there could be a plague right there right now, it could be under lockdown, maybe the city's half taken over and it's under siege, right? Any kind of barrier you want. And it's a challenge for the players, and so at higher levels they can reach this new area, almost like unlocking an area in a game after you reach a higher level. But this time it actually feels good because there's a challenge you can overcome, and they could even, if they can do it at lower levels and get access to this region that you hadn't planned on. But that's fine, because you can accommodate on, you can compensate on the fly. So barriers are good because it helps you harden cats, and it gives them regions to explore later on, right? And another added benefit of barriers is if it's a ruined city or a former city or a city built by monsters, you can have different monsters inhabit different districts, right? And so there's a live play called Dungeons & Dragonheim. It's really good. Just check it out. I'm gonna plug that a lot because it's really good. The DM Monty Martin, he had put Minotaurs in one area, and the party was low enough level for the Minotaurs to be a threat. And so it served a dual purpose of keeping them out of one area or discouraging them from entering one, because they still went there at times, and it was just a drain on their resources. But it discouraged them from going to this certain area, and it was foreshadowing that Baphomet, the Prince of Beasts, was in the area because he had turned people into minotaurs, right? So it was really skillful. It was done with great finesse, and it was beautiful. And that's the kind of thing you can do with districts and foreshadowing, is you can you can allude to the greater event, and you can keep the players in line. So that's why you should have some districts, all right? Now, another two more things you're going to have is who lives here and what are they like. So let's take our city, Haberfell, all right? It's a small city of 1,000. They live along a river, so they're fishermen. It's pretty dour. It's a pretty grim atmosphere. It's not super cheery and happy like some place like Waterdeep. Very cheerful city, a very rich and prosperous city. On the color scheme would be very bright, while Haberfell would be very dark colors. You know what I mean? So that's who lives here. It's the fishermen of Haberfell, right? Very dour, very grim people, all right? Who else lives here? Some notable NPCs, okay? Now, later on in this video, I'm going to cover what's happening here. If there's nothing happening here, you're going to want to throw in some notable NPCs. You're going to want some either way, but it's going to be more important if there's nothing happening here, because why did you bring the players to Haberfell? You brought them here for a reason, right? So maybe they had to meet with a wizard. I have a character whose brothers were kidnapped, and so the main impetus of our campaign is locating a divination wizard who can help me find my brothers, right? So that's kind of a version, that's an example of a notable NPC that you would want to put in a city. So that's who lives here, right? The people or notable NPCs, or really both. And then what are they like? Well, they're very dour, they're very grim people. They wear dark clothes, they wear leather boots. It's a very muddy place. Very much drawing inspiration from the Innistrad set of Magic the Gathering. So just kind of look at them, and you should be able to get a feel. And if you have to draw inspiration from another source, that's fine. That's good. Go ahead, do that. So that's who lives here. That's what they like. All right. Here's a pro tip: last names. All right. As we all know or have heard, last names come from what you did, right? Smith, he was a Smith. Miller, he was a Miller, right? So take some of those, and not every family is going to have a last name like that, but take some of those. Let's take Smith and Miller, for example. So we can change our Smith to the name Hammerhand, right? Or Hammerarm or something like that. And, that is a good, name for the blacksmith, right? Like Armill Hammerhand, right? That's a good name for a blacksmith because it's a variation of Smith, B, adds a little spice, and C, it serves a good purpose of letting you know, like, hey, that's obviously the blacksmith, right? And then, the same thing with Miller. Let's say that the city of Haberfell, because it has a mill, let's say the miller's name is Henry, okay? So his name is Henry Miller. Well, let's change Miller because it's a real world name. Let's change it to Henry Millhouse, okay? So we've added more flavor by changing the last name. So that's just a little pro tip, all right? And the final category is what is happening. So what is happening is kind of like, whenever I make all my campaigns, I write down every faction, good and bad. And so what is happening is kind of like, what are the bad factions doing? And what are the good factions doing too, for that matter? But let's take Haberfell. It's a small city. There's not many factions in Haberfell. So in Haberfell, it's just the bad faction. There's a, let's see, fishermen, river, water, frogs, okay? There's a cult that worships a froghemoth. And they're making sacrifices of people who are new to town, and so that's why they're going to target the players, so that they can sacrifice on this froghemoth for fertility. Okay, there's a group of evil druids that guide the monster and guard the monster, and then when you go to the lake, you can fight some bullywugs there too, and the whole adventure could be them finally getting out of the lake and fighting the froghemoth. Like, that would be a really fun adventure. Okay. And so that is how you build a city. That should be everything you need to build a little city, have little things going on. And they say, DM, how many people live here? Boom, you got it, 1,000. DM, what are they like? Oh, it's a pretty grim, dour atmosphere. DM, who's a notable NPC that lives here? Lord Muck. All right, he's the noble king of Haberfell, and his family built the city, and it's a dynasty that's lasted for 14 generations, right? There's a notable NPC, and you can just give them all that stuff. You can herd your cats. You have points of interest. If they go off rails, you'll be ready for them to do that, right? You've got interesting last names, Hammerhand and Millhouse, right? And you've got what is happening, leading to a good campaign. So let me think if I can think of a final pro tip. Don't worry about attaching your city to the greater campaign yet, all right? Don't try and shoehorn, the evil prince is here and he just left, but first you have to help us and then you can go along your way. No, that's weird. They're going to go chase after the evil prince. So don't do an awkward attachment to the main campaign. If a city is by itself, it's by itself, and if they want to explore it, they can spend their time and explore it. The evil guys, the big bad evil guys, are still going to go ahead with their plan. No matter how much downtime you give the players, the big bag is still doing his thing. So if they want to take a bunch of downtime, give it to them. But there are consequences for your actions. Goodbye, good luck, and have fun with your games.